Nation podcast on the Spreaker Prime Network, iHeart Media, and Hobby Quick Hits. But this is not about sports card, even though I flubbed up that intro. This is about sports and two guys right here that are big sports fans. And just to do some housekeeping before we start the episode, we are both huge Pittsburgh Steelers fans. We are both Mets fans, Ranger fans, and I think we differ with NBA. I'm kind of a Nets fan. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and this guy over here likes the Knicks.
Yeah, I'd be a Knicks. I'm not a huge NBA guy, but if I pick, it wouldn't be the Nets for sure.
So, and what the show is going to be, it's going to be Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. There's going to be on audio form Wednesday morning. It will be released, but Tuesday nights will be at 8 p.m. if you want to watch us live. We're going to have a chat room available to any comments. We may respond accordingly to those, but we're going to have different topics of what's current in the sports world and give our take and opinions on them. And contrary to popular belief, we don't always see eye to eye. A lot of times the opposite. So could get some feisty moments, but it'll be fun nonetheless. We promise no fisticuffs.
Yeah. If we haven't, we probably won't over sports. So we should be safe.
So let's start out with something that kind of some breaking news with where he might wind up, and that's J.J. Watt cut by the Houston Texans. He asked for his release. It was granted. That organization, first off, is a mess right now. You got Deshaun Watson, who's vowing never to play there again. And J.J. Watt, who's a veteran, he's on his, let's be honest, his last legs as a pro, a great player nonetheless. Being we're both Steeler fans and the other two Watt brothers are there, we kind of initially thought he was sort of a shoe-in that just recombine the family again and reunite with Pittsburgh. But it's not, as each day goes on here, it's looking more and more like that's not going to be the case. I told Jordan here that I thought he was a little more sure that it was going to happen. And I was like, I think he's going to want one more, decent contract and take money, which Pittsburgh is up against the cap. So if he goes to Pittsburgh, it's not going to be for money. We're hearing today, but just before airtime, that the Browns are hot and heavy on his tail to get him. They have some serious cap money. They have a lot of money to spend. They just got to get people who want to go to Cleveland. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jordan here. We both were hoping Pittsburgh. It's not looking like the outcome. Do you think it's Cleveland? Or do you think someone else comes in here?
I think it's early still. I think that Pittsburgh still has a really good shot, especially with how Pittsburgh's managed for the last 10 years with restructuring and whatnot. I think if that were to happen, they got a little bit work to do. With the Browns, though, the Browns tend to kind of throw money at big names no matter age. So I think if he were to go for a higher price for a guy his age, I wouldn't be too upset. And I don't think Pittsburgh would be either if he were to take a bigger chunk out of cap out of Cleveland.
Yeah, the Cleveland thing is odd to me, Jordan, because it's one thing if you don't go to Pittsburgh, he wants more money. I get that, but to go into the same division as your two brothers as a rival, I mean, one of their biggest in division rivals, especially this year, they got beat by him in the playoffs handedly, embarrassingly, and then to sign there, it just really strikes me as kind of odd. He hasn't signed there yet, obviously, but the fact that he's even considering it. I don't get. I mean, there's probably a lot of places he could go. He's been other teams I've heard of interest or have contacted him, including the Dallas Cowboys, his hometown of the Green Bay Packers.
That's who I think it's really. I think Pittsburgh and Green Bay is where it probably comes down to. I think if Cleveland or a team decides to really go all out money wise, that could switch it up. But I think if you're looking at sentimental wise, I think that's where it's between. The Cleveland thing is weird because it's such a murky division as well. I don't think him going to Cleveland makes them a clear Super Bowl contender. I think it helps, but I don't think it puts them over the top. So I don't see that advantage when it comes to over Pittsburgh or really or Green Bay even. So like you said, if it comes down to he's kind of on the twilight of his career, he wants one big deal, then I could see it. But I think if he's looking at, like he said, kind of going to a contender and familiarity, the other options make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's got the money, though. And so I guess if it's just about the money, that's why they're probably in consideration. It just strikes me as funny. Some of these press reports, how this goes, Jordan. You don't know what to believe. Is someone, taking something little and making it bigger? Is there really smoke there, potential fire, or what? I'd love to really. It's going to be interesting when he does finally sign. Where it's going to be. If it's not Pittsburgh, I hope it's out of division. I just think that would be really odd, and I don't know, but we were hoping. I don't know about you. I just don't think Pittsburgh's in the mix with their salary cap issues. They're really up against it.
I think with Pittsburgh, it's tough because every year it seems like you have 5 guys renegotiate, and there's cap. They find space. And I think with Juju, it's interesting as well, because I think you have a couple guys there where if you don't sign a guy like that, I think you start to have more room for luxury on the defense. It's just, I think it really will show you Pittsburgh's mindset kind of going into free agency. Do they want to really kind of keep their guy, with Juju, or are they willing to change stuff up, which they've kind of shown a little bit more with coordinators? Granted, they promoted from in-house like normal, but it's still somewhat of a switch.
Don't get me started. So we could do a whole show on what I think about that. But we'll table that for a slower week, if you will. But so J.J. Watt right now, the leading contender, if you believe the news reports, is Cleveland. I don't know. It sounds like he kind of wants to get this thing done a little quickly. I thought if it happened quick, it'd be Pittsburgh, and I think the longer it goes on, the less likely it winds up being the Steelers. So I really didn't. I wasn't, hoping. I wasn't like putting all my hopes on that. So I'm not going to be super disappointed. I'll be more disappointed though if he went to the Browns or the Ravens or the Bengals type of deal.
Yeah.
And played against his brother. It would just be sort of like, the Avengers breaking up and playing, fighting against each other. I don't want to.
I gotta think that's an odd conversation though, because if you're TJ, you kind of gotta like call him up or just something like where, like anywhere but Cleveland kind of deal.
Yeah, that would be interesting at the Thanksgiving table if he did go to Cleveland. So. I don't know. We'll see. But speaking of, let's stay with the NFL. And another guy that might relocate, Carson Wentz. Rumors are, a week or two ago, Jordan, it looked like the Bears had the deal all wrapped up. They were backing up the Brinks truck, if you believe the reports. The deal was reportedly being imminent, could go down any minute, and then it sort of like cooled off.
Well, then there was the report now is the Colts have the highest kind of offer standing, which I don't know. The Colts to me is a much better spot for him. The Bears on paper looks good, but with a guy like Nagy there, I don't know if he's in any better of a situation with Wentz. Because Peterson is a good kind of offensive coach. So going from that to a guy with Nagy, they've been terrible on offense, I don't know if he really upgrades at all. I think that's another situation where he's kind of just stuck in the mud, and some of it's his fault, and I think there would be a lot where he's carrying a lot of extra weight of the offense. Where Trubisky, I think Trubisky's not good, but I think he's had to get a lot of criticism for Nagy not being able to put together a real offense as well. So the Colts, I think, would be much better situation.
Yeah, I think the Trubisky experiment in Chicago's done. I think they know it.
Oh
I
yeah,
think he knows it. But when you look at Wentz, I like him more than most. I think he just needs
yeah,
a scenery change. But some will argue that Wentz may not be that much of an upgrade over Trubisky. And so for the Bears, with that initial reported deal, a lot of draft picks, some players. I read one report they were giving up Roquan Smith, who's to me a top tier defensive player. I would do that if I was the Eagles for sure. And I don't know, maybe the Bears heard everyone say in the
yeah,
public, like, what are you doing? And the GM probably just pumped the brakes. And so now you're mentioning the Colts as being a possible destination, reunited with Frank Reich, who maybe thinks he can fix what ails Wentz. It'd be interesting to see. I think I don't know what the Eagles are thinking in their offices. Do they believe Hurts is the long term answer?
yeah.
Late in the season, he did not really play well. He
No,
didn't. I'm not an Eagles fan, but when watching some of those games, I didn't see what I would lead me to believe like, hey, this guy's going to be the quarterback for the next 10 years.
yeah,
10 years here. I'm not saying he won't be or he can't be, but based on the small sample size we got,
yeah,
I'm not ready to anoint him that we see a trend, Jordan, in the NFL with quarterbacks. You got to perform a lot
yeah,
faster than you used to. The days of where Steve Young could stay behind Joe Montana for 4 years and Rodgers behind Favre for that long, and now it's you got to come in and play well, or they'll give up on you.
yeah,
We're hearing in Miami, like the Dolphins maybe are off the Tua train, and it's their own guy that they might be second guessing that pick. And I think what we see with Burrow's performance before he got hurt, the year Justin Herbert had, winning the Rookie of the Year and breaking rookie records. If you don't perform like that as a rookie quarterback, people are going to get off the
yeah,
hype of you and kind of move on and look for that guy. And I
yeah.
think it's quick. We've seen it.
It's interesting though with those guys though is you look, they were 4-year guys in college, so I think that's a big thing too. It is just odd the whole trend of it's home run or nothing. If you know what I mean, it's first pitch. If it's not a home run, it's next guy up. And it's odd because you see Kansas City and the success they have doing that, having Mahomes sit. And you have other teams, and really no one's really replicated it, which is odd for a league that's kind of built off copycat. Every team is just wants to catch up right now, and we've seen it really hasn't worked. In some cases, like Herbert, it has worked, but we've seen guys and teams waste these early picks where you can put talent on defense or somewhere else, and instead you're taking a shot on a guy they don't even really believe in. And the next year they're in the same position with no extra talent from that pick.
Yeah, well, look, you got Tua in Miami,
Yeah.
where the room's kind of cooled to what they think of him, at least by reports.
That they almost did that to themselves too. You got to commit either way. Have him be behind Fitzpatrick and learn, or have him ride it out. It's not really fair to have him be a starter, go 7 innings, and then when the game matters, be like, you're not ready. He's either ready or not. And in being in that position, it can be really tough as a quarterback to not know it, to not have that trust behind you. They picked you where they did, but they can start you, but when it's on the line, they don't trust you. And with a guy like Tua, who kind of had the same issue with that at Alabama, he won the job, and late in, I think it was his senior year, they took him out, and Hurts came in and ended up winning the game. So it's kind of, with something like that, you have to be, I think, really careful, and you can really ruin a guy early on just by not nurturing him kind of in the right way.
Yeah, well, I want to speak on Brian Flores, the coach of Miami, from the Belichick tree. I like him. He's actually done very well.
That's the thing.
It's funny how he sort of mishandled. Yeah. If there's a criticism from me on Brian Flores, it's how he's handled, like you just said, handled the Tua thing. A lot of the other moves he's made has been all right.
That's what's difficult is they've played well and they made did they make the playoffs? It was close,
No,
or they were
just
right
missed.
there. Yeah,
They were
but they weren't a team that was supposed to be really even in that race. So to get there is really good, but when you see, is it worth hindering the development of such an early pick? And a guy, Tua is not a normal quarterback prospect. He's kind of a little bit more highly touted than that. So to kind of have something precious like that in a sense, and to almost throw it on the line for a lower wild card spot where you're not really going to make a run, I don't know if the trade-off is there.
Well, I tell you what, quarterback in the NFL might be the heaviest pressure job in the world. I mean, you look how fast you got to get it done, or you're toast. You know, you got Tua being cooled on, and Miami reports are that the Giants aren't in as love with Daniel Jones as they were when they drafted him and moved up to get him. You got Dwayne Haskins, who's now a Steeler.
Yeah.
Just the Redskins. I know he kind of shot himself in the foot with some stuff, but you know, for being that talented in college, they just kind of tossed him aside. They made him a captain, and then he was cut. And
that's the thing I think's unfair is to put him out as this kind of locker room issue, and he's not good for that. Which, if that's true, that's fine. But how do you name him a captain? So there's some problem as a coach to not have the foresight to name a guy as your leader, but he clearly doesn't have that quality, or at least not yet. He's not there. And especially with Haskins, he was a young guy coming out. He didn't stay for all 4. He came pretty early, and he only played, I think, the 1 or 2 years. Yeah. So I think making him a captain and throwing him in that position could be a lot. And I think the other thing is it's his hometown. He was really from that area. So being kind of the man, you know what I mean, being where you're from, being comfortable, it can be tough. So I think this is really his next chance. You can't really blow it, you know, in Pittsburgh, but I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, we'll see. We're going to talk about that situation towards the back end of the show. So we'll sort of save the Haskins, Roethlisberger stuff for later. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy how the position of quarterbacks changed in the NFL from a position where you can learn behind a veteran for 2-3 years, then take the job and run with it. And now you've got to be ready to go. Trevor Lawrence probably going to be the number 1 pick for the Jags. And, you know, he better, I know he's going to have surgery here, but should be ready from all reports for the season. And I guess he better perform quick, or they'll be cooling off on him. But maybe we'll get him in Pittsburgh too. But I wouldn't want, you know, I wouldn't want to be a quarterback.
If that was the case, we should have started the tank job before week 12.
Yeah. I was gonna say, can we have like 2 drafts? You know, a second half draft. We'd have the first. Another
interesting part of the quarterback thing, though, is a lot of these teams that have had veteran quarterbacks and star level guys they're starting to retire. So it'll be interesting to see teams that have had a mature, developed, you know, star guy, how they move on to the next one. Because I think a lot of the quarterback turnover is really from the same teams who have had that quarterback turnover for quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how the Saints, how Pittsburgh, how New England, who have been able to keep one guy and be stable, how they move on to kind of the next generation.
Yeah, I don't know if Pittsburgh has a plan, but we're going to talk about that at the end. So let's go to the NBA, where the defending champs lost Robin. If you believe LeBron is Batman, Robin is hurt. That's Anthony Davis. No official word of how long he's out for. It's reportedly an Achilles tendon. He's definitely looking at least a couple weeks before they know long term how long he's going to be out. Does this hurt them if he is? Now let's go put the cart ahead of the horse here. If this is a blown or burst Achilles or whatever the worst what they're fearing it might be, and he's out for the year, can the Lakers repeat without an Anthony Davis?
I don't think so. I think they probably can get to the finals. I don't think it's a guarantee, especially without him. But I just think having LeBron having to step up to that level, I'm not a huge LeBron guy, but he already does so much at his age. Kind of having to almost double that load would be, it would just be very difficult to see him kind of take on these three-headed monster teams almost single-handedly. We've seen him kind of do it, but I think this is a bit different of a scenario. And having a guy like AD go down is huge because I think AD is almost an equal part to that Lakers team. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily LeBron and then AD. I think they're almost the same. So I think you're really losing half your star power of that team.
Yeah, I think what people forget about is Anthony Davis' defensive presence in the middle there. Let's be honest. I don't, people might disagree with what I'm about to say. I don't watch a ton of Lakers basketball, but when I do, LeBron doesn't, scare me as a defender. A lot of times I see guys roll by him and he's looking for help on the backside. And I think if Anthony Davis is out a while, it's going to hurt him defensively. Yeah. So when you get in, like you said, with some of these teams that have those 2 or 3 all-star caliber players, like you said, LeBron can score. Like
LeBron, I think he can. He is a top tier defender when he wants to be, and I think he's had the ability to not have to be that all the time with LeBron or with AD being there. And you can serve energy like that, and you can really focus offensively. And I think now with AD, if he isn't there long term, having to turn your focus and really almost go 50-50 offense and defense, it's going to be tough. The NBA is tough, and I think the Lakers, if something he is down, I think might, turn something around and bring someone in. But
I was just going to say that.
But I think as they are, it would be difficult to see them repeating. But with the way the NBA is, and I think LeBron at his age, I think, God forbid, hopefully Anthony Davis isn't down long term, but I think they're going to do what they can to cushion that fall.
Well, Marc Gasol is going to get more minutes, and you touch on something I agree with. I was going to say it, stole my thunder a little bit, but it's true. They're probably going to, if AD's out for a long-term period, they're probably going to make a move, whether it's sign somebody, pull off some sort of trade.
I know, like Andre Drummond, Cleveland talks about movement. Even any kind of a big man with a physical presence, I think, just to take that defensive pressure off, because they have their depth is there. It's just you really kind of want your one big kind of anchor down there.
Well, maybe Shaq will come out of retirement and stop doing the general commercials and sign a Lakers.
The way he talks, if you ever hear him talk about other players, you'd think he could still play.
I know. What was it? The one with Donovan Mitchell? It was pretty.
I don't know.
It was pretty harsh, man. I was a little surprised.
I don't know. It's odd because it doesn't really even come off like as reverent or like as as constructive criticism. It was really pretty like a jab toward them. I don't get it. He wasn't, I don't think, nearly as bad. It's more this year. He seems very visceral with even compliments are almost all backhanded.
Yeah, maybe he's got a little cabin fever with the pandemic. So we'll see what happens. We don't know at the time of this show. We don't know the long-term prognosis. Could it be a month? Could it be the whole year? That's going to really determine what direction they'd probably go in at. Right now, at the time of this podcast, they're 21-7. They're second in the Western Conference, so they're in good position. Like you said, they're going to make the playoffs. I think they.
And that was the other reason I really think they have a good shot of getting back is Utah being in first. I think Utah's a good team, but I think Lakers and Utah, if they were to match up, or even really anyone, I think the Lakers have that slight advantage just because of LeBron's there. I don't think they're unbeatable. I think with AD, they almost are unbeatable in the West, but I think without him, they do become beatable. But I still think they're probably going to be favored in most of their series.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. First things first, we got to find out how long he's injured for, and then I'm sure the Lakers will try to figure something out. Let's go to Major League Baseball now. Bauer behavior. This one struck close to home, being Mets fans. It looked like, that Bauer was on his way to being in these Mets rotation. And goofy kind of a guy, really a social media WHORE, if you will. And he come off one great year where he did win the Cy Young in a shortened season.
Very
He
short.
had the year before he played pretty well, but if you look at his overall body of work, kind of a 500 pitcher, except the last year and a half. And as Mets fans, sure, you want a Cy Young winner. It's not our $40 million.
Yeah.
So Steve Cohen's, and we were spending Steve Cohen's money gladly to get him. And he did some goofy stuff with his website. He was selling Mets hats, Dodger hats.
He should have. The thing I didn't like with it is own it, because he after the fact he pulled the my PR team, my manager. That's not the case. He knows there's more control. There's like two people. It's him and his agent that really manage this thing. So you can't tell me he had no clue. He woke up and all of a sudden it's on his website. Own it. You know what I mean? You've been this big guy. You keep promoting yourself. At least be man enough to own it and tell I am doing this. I am doing this for hype. Don't kind of cower into it's my management team.
Well, for the 2 cents it's worth, he did apologize after the fact, and but let's go. But I was reading reports on Twitter for the 2 cents they're worth, but everything I read was like this thing was done. Bauer to the Mets, about to be announced soon. And then I came across my phone a notification: Bauer signs with Dodgers, and I'm like, what's going on? And then Sandy Alderson came out, I guess we'll call him the president of the Mets. I'm not sure what his
baseball guy.
Yeah, Steve Cohen's buddy, who gets paid very highly. We'll call him, if that's a position. But Sandy Alderson came out and said in his whole history, his whole career in baseball, which is a vast one, that this has never happened before. That pretty much they had an agreement minus a signature on a paperwork or a digital document, and that at the last minute he went and signed with the Dodgers. Now, other people are saying Bauer used the Mets to get a better deal, like the Dodgers, in other words, where he always wanted to go. He's a California
I don't know
kid.
If that's the case, because Mets said that was their offer. They weren't getting into a bidding war. So the Mets never, I think, moved. I think the Dodgers offer was kind of ridiculous. I still think it's even over the top. But I think the Mets said, we're going to do what we're going to do. And I think Bauer almost was trying to bait, the Mets into biting. Like, all right, we can go a little bit more. Almost like he's making them think they got him, but the Dodgers are still there. Could you do almost like it was reverse trying to get the Mets? And I don't think the Mets bit. So that's what I think, being a Mets fan, the optimistic part. But he's put himself really into a tough position, because the way that whole thing went down, the way it was all negotiated, he has to be electric these 2 years. If he's anything lower than almost Cy Young, no team is really going to want to unload for him when he kind of pulled all that stuff. I just don't see another team coming to bat with open arms like, oh, we can't wait to negotiate with you. I mean, if he is a Cy Young level guy, that's different. But I think if he's any drop off back to kind of what he was the seasons before, I think it's going to raise some questions and really start to look like a 1 year, capitalize off, your season and ride off into the sunset.
Well, I don't think Trevor's worried about that, Jordan.
Yeah.
He just got, I don't know, 40 million years, the highest paid baseball player for a guy that's going to play every fifth day. I don't get it. But he was lucky, Jordan, in the fact that he was the marquee name in a really down free agent class year. Yeah, he took advantage of that.
I think really pretty much everywhere in baseball, the free agents weren't great. I think even George Springer, who was kind of your big name field position guy, doesn't wow me. I think he's a nice piece, but I don't think you sign that guy thinking you turn your team around really, he's not a centerpiece to me. And for him being the top 3 free agent, even with Bauer, I don't think, especially in the Mets case, he's not even your one. So it would be tough to justify spending that money. But the whole promoting himself is odd, because it's almost like the MLB needs to promote their players more and get out there more. And it's like he's taking it on himself, where it should be kind of put on guys like Trout or Mookie Betts or Zuna, not Ozuna, but Acuna, yeah. Where it's like he's kind of trying to steal that spotlight and be kind of the knight for the MLB. And it's like you had one good year. Like, I don't know if the MLB should really, I know it's not Major League Baseball itself doing it, but that's not the guy you hitch your horses to. Like, look, this is our star guy. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. If he would have came to the Mets, he would have been at best the second best pitcher on that rotation.
Third best in New York.
And now he goes to LA. And I'm gonna be honest, people might think I'm nuts here.
I like Buehler.
I like Walker Buehler better than Trevor Bauer. I think he's got better stuff. I know he's younger, and I know his he doesn't have the resume, but I just like him long term. I think he's a better pitcher. I mean, Bauer has better numbers because he's played longer, and he had a better year last year. But I guess what I'm saying, I'm not buying Bauer's year last year as much as other people. But he's got $40 million of the Dodgers' money, ain't giving it back. And now they do have, let's be real, whether we're Mets fans or not, they do have a very good, probably the best rotation, at least on paper.
Major League Baseball has to figure something out when it comes to the cap, because the Dodgers are spending through the roof, which is fine. They're trying to win, but you can't have a team like the Pirates who total payroll is $40 million.
Me and you can make the Pirates right now, at least as bench players.
It's insane.
In the very minimum.
You can't have that big of a difference in money and competitiveness.
It's crazy.
It's like 2 different leagues almost at that point.
You know who the Dodgers remind me of, and you were younger or maybe not even around yet? The way the Yankees used to be back in the day. Just throwing money all around, rumored to be signing everybody or interested in everyone.
The reason the Dodgers can do it is they have the farm system. So they can spend $40-50 million a year for 1 or 2 dudes and then let them go, because the guys coming up, they just replace them with all-star level guy or all-star level prospects. So they built up, they have that luxury. It's just not having that hard cap in the MLB allows your Yankees, your Dodgers, your Red Sox, and now with the Mets kind of being close, to spend kind of so much more than your teams like the Pirates and the Rays. And we've seen teams like the Rays have it work, but you have to really have a GM that knows what you're doing. It doesn't really seem nearly as competitive as a playing field.
Yeah. You didn't even see the Bauer video he did.
No, I didn't want to watch it.
It's, for those that have seen it, they know what I'm talking about. He did a video montage or vignette. He was like just him with a light on him in a dark room at like a desk, and he was talking about his dad. And it was very well produced. The production value was great, but watching this thing, I'm like, is this like you said, is this Mike Trout or is this Trevor Bauer that this is an homage to? I thought it was over the top. I thought it showed how full of himself he was. I know he was trying to like sort of honor his father, but it came across as more about him in the end. And I guess maybe there's a little bit in this being a Mets fan, but I saw this video and I just thought, man, it was LeBron-esque. It was something I would like when. And
I didn't even like that. I didn't like the LeBron decision thing, but at least it's LeBron. It's arguably the second greatest basketball, first, second, wherever you want to rank him. At least he's there.
It was LeBron-esque, and the dude is not even in the same stratosphere in his own sport. LeBron is arguably the best player in the sport. Trevor Bauer is not even the best pitcher in the sport, let alone the best. I know we won the Cy Young. I'm not going to argue that fact. He's still not the best pitcher. People win awards because they have great years, but that doesn't mean they do that all the time. And so
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it'll be interesting too, kind of to see how the pitchers around him react, especially in LA. You have guys like Clayton Kershaw, who's arguably the greatest, one of the greatest pitchers ever, and you have a guy who won a 60-game Cy Young award, just running around touting himself like that. Does a guy like Kershaw kind of look at that with a certain light? And even a guy like Walker Buehler, like we were talking about, who was kind of gone through their system, and he's starting to look like he's really going to turn that corner. And like you said, I agree. I think he's better than Bauer. They all kind of got to look, like this guy's not. I don't want to call him a clown, but it's kind of just very, just so expressive. It's just bringing so much attention, and it's not team based. It really doesn't feel like a team thing, especially with only a 2-year deal. Not committing to a team is an odd thing too, because other guys in the locker room, they're competing for a World Series, but it's got to be weird that he's only, you know what I mean? Like he is too, but with $45 million, like you had to really pull his leg, and it's only 2-year deal. Like he wouldn't commit long term.
If I'm Walker Buehler, I'm licking my lips right now because, I don't know how many years he signed to, but I'm not like doing my deal yet. And I'm when that thing's time to renegotiate, and assuming he still progresses up, like he's trending up like he is, when my contract's due, I'm gonna say, hey, or if I'm his agent, I'm gonna say, hey, this guy's a better pitcher than Trevor Bauer, and you gave him $40 million. My guy wants
It'll be interesting though, because I wonder if the Dodgers have kind of this plan, signing Bauer to the 2-year deal. It's massive deal. By the time that's up, do they just let him go
and then that money
throw the money towards Buehler?
Maybe
because that's kind of what they've done. Even when Harper was a free agent, they offered huge money for a short-term deal. So it's kind of like, we're just stacked everywhere. We have extra money. We might as well just throw it at talent short term and lock up, a real guys later.
Yeah.
And they've been able to kind of do pretty much whatever they wanted in free agency with trades and everything. So I think they've got something planned. I don't think it is a huge amount of money for Bauer, but I don't think they would go into that without, having kind of that net.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. He goes to the Dodgers. They just won a World Series. So even if they repeat, how much credit do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of a weird, I get it. He's from California. I get all the hometown stuff, and I can't argue against that. But if they repeat, they almost say they should, because they got a 1 or 2 line pitcher when they already won the World Series. So, I don't
see.
know
My argument against the hometown thing was you got paid crazy money, and it's a short-term deal. If he really cared about it being from Southern California and whatnot, it would have been more than 2 years. You know what I mean? He can play it up as much as he wants. He's coming home. He got $45 million, and he won't commit longer than 2 years.
Yeah.
For a guy that loves his hometown, 2 years isn't a long time to say you want to stay.
All right, enough Trevor Bauer. If he was listening, he would really be happy that we were talking about him for this long. Let's go to our own team here, being Steeler fans. But it is a story across the league. I mean, it's a big story. You got a 17-year vet in Ben Roethlisberger. Definitely looked every bit of his age the second half of the year, and did not play well. A lot of more interceptions. The guy doesn't run anymore, so that part of his game is gone. He's in a division where you have Baker Mayfield playing good. You got Joe Burrow looking like the answer long-term in Cincinnati. And for all, I know we pick on him sometimes, but Lamar Jackson's an athlete in Baltimore. And so, as much as it pains me to say it, Ben Roethlisberger, if as a starting quarterback, is probably the worst at ranking him in the 4 teams in the AFC North. He's scheduled to make, if nothing was to change, he's scheduled, listen to this, folks, 41. We just talked about Trevor Bauer being overpaid. Ben Roethlisberger is scheduled to make $41 million. The Steelers, as you heard us talk about earlier in the pod, are really up against the eight ball with cap space. You got Juju that they're saying they want back. I don't know. I think a lot of that's just for show for the fans. I think Juju's probably gone.
I think
the team
that's
knows that.
just so it kind of softens the blow. You know, we tried, we wanted him, you know.
Marquise Pouncey just retired, and Ben and Marquise always said they would retire together.
And Roethlisberger even tried before the official announcement. He said he was going to try and convince him, and obviously, you know, it didn't come to fruition. So I wonder if that has any pull. I don't think so, because I think Roethlisberger would have probably announced something. But it'll be interesting when they meet. What is less? How much is less for Pittsburgh? Because 40, like you said, 41 million is not cheap. In Roethlisberger's less money this year, it's probably much different than Pittsburgh's less money. So it'll be interesting. And Pittsburgh's in the past hasn't always gracefully kicked guys out the door. So it'll be interesting.
One guy comes to mind is Palomalo. He did not want some people don't realize it. Some real Steeler fans might. Palomalo really didn't want to retire. The Steelers just said, we don't want you playing anymore. And from what I read about that deal, Jordan, is he had offers to keep playing, and he just decided he never acted on him. He just hung him up. He was a little bitter about that. You don't see him at a lot of
I think
Steeler
even
events.
Hines Ward, wasn't it the Jets, or he kind of flirted with leaving right before?
Yeah. So it might be that sort of moment for Big Ben. And I'm going to be honest with you. If he does want to play, the Steelers just say, well, we're not paying
That's the thing, is I know
he's not going to get that kind of money anywhere else.
But he said he won't play anywhere. That's what's going to be interesting, is how does this go down? Because it's different with a guy like Hines Ward and Troy Polamalu. Even though they're legends, they're not the star franchise quarterback. So it's going to be interesting. I think he should have probably went out this year. I think he had a good year. I don't think he had a bad year at all. But I don't think next year is going to be an improvement. I don't see him improving. I think late in the year, even his arms started to look old. I think he's already been kind of slow, but I think even that, you know, breaking off a couple extra hits thing that Ben normally does, I don't think was there. I think they got to him. He typically went down, and losing that aspect from a guy like Ben, who that's something huge. Not other quarterbacks really have that. And when you take that away and you take kind of that big arm away, it really can hurt you, especially in the NFL, kind of moving towards more of that fast-paced, mobile style offense.
Yeah, well, let's look at a few other things too. Let's say they work out some terms somehow, some way. He's coming back. He's going to be again a year older. Deteriorating skills. He's got an offensive line that's going to be who knows what. All new faces.
I think they have good young guys in, but it's the kind of thing you don't know. There's no certainty, and he's not fast. He's not going to be able to compensate if they aren't great. And I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a situation for a 17-year vet to really want to step in with a new center, probably new other offensive line pieces, hopefully a new running back, a new offensive coordinator who's known to kind of spread it out and be much more and be a real coordinator. I don't think Roethlisberger's had an actual coordinator. He's kind of had a guy dictate some plays, but he's really been the force. So I don't know if that's a great situation for Roethlisberger to really step into, and I don't think it's a place where he can really thrive. And I just, being a Steelers fan, especially, I've never seen anyone else, start.
That's true.
Other than him being hurt. I don't know if you'd want to see him kind of go out and whimper out. I think he had a good season. I think you could tell by the end he was done, but it wasn't where he looked ugly. I think it would be a good time. But unfortunately, it's hard to tell someone, you know what I mean? The job you've been doing, getting paid $30 million to do the last 17 years, 17 years, you're not good enough to do it anymore. So especially with $41 million on the table.
The problem too, man, and you know this, Jordan, is the Steelers did not properly prepare for this day.
No.
Mason Rudolph, I don't know what I think. I know what you think. You know what I think.
He's bad.
He's terrible.
Yeah,
I'm going to say, probably the worst swear word we'll say on the show. I think he's ass. Think he's terrible. They did sign Haskins. Now I like that. I like that signing. People in Washington are saying, you're nuts. Watch what you get. But it's worth the flyer. But is he ready this quickly to take a Steelers? It's a franchise with a lot of history. He's been called immature, and let's be real. The Washington is a famous franchise, but they don't have the legacy the Steelers do. And is he going to be able to come in after Roethlisberger and be the guy? That's I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong.
I think it could happen. I just think it's not a great situation, and it's not really fair to Haskins. You're really not setting him up really well. You're kind of just setting him up to fail. And a guy that's already had the issue in Washington, I don't think that's really a place you want to put him in. I think Pittsburgh has run into issues they didn't expect to have, obviously with Brown and Le'Veon Bell kind of happening. That's where I think a lot of that cap money was. With those guys going kind of, whatever they did, it made Pittsburgh kind of have to work in a different way. So I think these upcoming years, I think, will be really interesting in Pittsburgh because they've had a stable way of operating. You had Roethlisberger. You pretty much had that line. And I think now you're going to have a much different – something's going to have to change.
I hate to say it. It's weird to say it. We haven't said it probably in a good some amount of years. I think Pittsburgh's sort of in a rebuild, really.
See, I don't. I think their defense to me is too good and too young to rebuild.
Well, at least I think they're in a rebuild on the offensive side of the ball.
I don't know if you have to rebuild necessarily. You have the weapons. You have to retool. If you're going to make a run, you can't use all the guys there. I think the quarterback thing's interesting.
Well, that's the problem. They're not in a position where they can just say to Ben, we've got your replacement. We loved you. You're a Hall of Famer in our hearts and minds, but we're ready to move on. And this guy, here we have Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre to come in.
But
they don't have their Aaron Rodgers.
I think the issue with that is Roethlisberger kind of the blocking of them looking for that replacement or getting a guy that's ready now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you go out and get a Stafford, but an option
I don't think he's getting traded twice. So.
No, but I'm saying before. You know what I mean? Does having Roethlisberger, if Roethlisberger retires, does Pittsburgh at least entertain something like that? So I think that,
it makes me wonder too, Jordan, if they weren't up against the cap so much, would they be in the conversation for a Carson Wentz or a Tua or some of these other quarterbacks?
Well, Tua doesn't hurt you in the cap, so I think that's the.
I don't know if Miami's really looking at trading.
But I think that it's more of the Roethlisberger scenario of is he kind of what's holding them, because it's just really up in the air of is Pittsburgh ready to move on? Do they look? It's just they're in a tough. They can win now. They've got talent, really good talent on defense. They have some playmakers on offense. You would have to really upgrade at quarterback and running back, and Roethlisberger puts them in kind of weird middle ground.
Yeah, they have been linked to I don't know. You read these reports, you just wonder where they come from. They have been linked to maybe potentially acquiring Sam Darnold from the Jets.
That would be perfect.
Let's be real. He's better. When he's not seeing ghosts, he's better than Mason Rudolph by a long mile. And that's the sad commentary is if Ben doesn't come, it's almost a lose-lose. If Ben don't come back, we're real. The cupboard's pretty bare. And if Ben does come back, he's going to have a pretty new line. We don't know if how much the running game is going to get fixed. or if it will. He's going to be even less mobile. Will probably a tick slower with the release, and a body that's a year older that's going to get hit, and he goes down. I'm just tired of seeing Mason Rudolph come in and not be very visibly to me a guy that I say is not going to be the franchise quarterback.
He's got to have the worst pocket presence I think any quarterback's ever had.
Yeah.
You could put like flashers on DNs and have him run in. I don't think he'd react.
I think the Steelers, they traded up around to get him. I think they thought they fell in love with some of the measurables, the height, the combine stuff.
They really keep doing he's Roethlisberger, like tall, big arm kind of deal. Yeah. There's the same with even Landry Jones before him, who was who I don't know who you think's worth.
For as good as the Steelers are at drafting wide receivers, they're the opposite when it comes to drafting with quarterbacks. T. Martin, we can go back even further. T. Martin, guys you probably don't even know. Josh Dobbs they drafted, who's a great guy, not necessarily.
Well, I think one of the problems, not a problem, it's just kind of a fact of the NFL is it's hard to find franchise guys outside of really the first 20 picks.
Yeah, and even those aren't guaranteed.
Yeah. So I think even Roethlisberger was, 11. So I think there might be some difficult. That's what's going to be interesting is when Roethlisberger retires, does Pittsburgh draft a guy or do they try and get a guy that's already established or a guy like a Goff and try and build him there? And I think it'll just be really interesting because they have a good defense. Do they really go into a win now and build around what's there? Or like you said, do they really start a rebuild? You keep your centerpieces on defense and offense and really,
Well, we're going to find out. I think this year, Jordan's going to be that year. Yeah. If we go 6-10 or 5-11, they're gonna rebuild because it's hard to go from 6-10 and 5-11.
I just don't know if they do that because the defense is so good. I don't know if I think they can muster out more than 6 wins just based on how good that defense is.
They do have. I don't know if you've seen the schedule for next season.
Yeah, it is much more difficult.
They have some really tough road games, and I'm anticipating by that time there are going to be some fans in the stands, so there will be some home team advantage for these away games, and it's going to be we're spoiled as Steeler fans. We're always 500 or higher. We're usually playoffs at least.
You could be a fan of other teams that don't have 6 rings.
I know, but we can't live in the past either. So it's been a little bit since we got that.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's also exciting in a way, just because, at least me personally, I've never seen a Pittsburgh really offseason where there's been major change. Yeah. It's especially the way they've operated. It's all within, it's draft within. The biggest change is really the draft, trading up for almost Devin Bush or signing or Minka. Other than that, they really pretty much play all within. So I think going forward, it'll be kind of interesting and it'll be cool to see what direction they go forward with.
I'm not, Art Rooney Jr. scares me a little bit. He's no Dan Rooney in my mind. I think he's just sort of happy counting money, where Dan Rooney was more like, we got to bring another Lombardi back here, and more like his dad was. And so we'll see. A lot of storylines in Pittsburgh and other places. The bottom line is, I talked about this on Roughing the Passer with Drew. It's going to be a lot of quarterbacks wearing different jerseys next year for sure. I think the draft, we're going to see some draft day trades, I think, with quarterbacks. People say, well, it's gotten quiet. Maybe there's not going to be as many trades. I think they're going to happen. I think you're going to see maybe 2 or 3 on draft night when it comes to picks and trading. Maybe even, like you see in basketball where someone drafts someone and then trades that pick, which is not prevalent in football, but maybe a little bit more this year with the quarterback.
Yeah, the quarterbacks is just really interesting because there's that 2-3 year vacuum of really talented quarterback prospects that some of them did get the help and get the backing, but a lot of them didn't. You have your Josh Rosens, your Haskins, even Darnold, who people still really believe in him, but his numbers aren't there. He hasn't looked great at times. And in Daniel Jones, there's just this big gap of quarterbacks that haven't really gotten the correct development. And it'll be interesting kind of to see when they go to these secondary teams and kind of move on, do these teams kind of nurture and develop them in a correct way, or how that kind of works out?
Yeah, with Darnold, I think of him. They draft him, and then they load up on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
You can't name like two Jets receivers. That's how bad it is there. And even their running backs, they went with old veterans like Gore and Bilal Powell, but they've never, Le'Veon Bell, who did not play well there.
Their line was abysmal. Yeah. You can't get a guy like Bell who he's good, but he needs to have that push up front, and to put him behind that line it's sad though. Now the Jets, if they do take Sewell at 2, they probably have your 2 best pieces, young linemen. Yeah. And if they do get rid of Darnold, it'll be kind of sad. Well,
if they let's be real, if they draft Sewell at 2, they're keeping Darnold. So we'll see. A lot of storylines yet to play out. It's going to be probably one of the most interesting offseason in NFL history in a long time. So it'll be fun to watch. We got our own storylines in Pittsburgh as well. So we'll see. But we're up against the hour. That is episode 1 of Hello Newman Sports Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll be live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. On YouTube, Facebook. To find the show, you have to follow Sports Card Nation Podcast. We are recording under that network. That's my other show pertaining to sports cards. Eventually, we might get our own platform, but I figure for now, we'll stay under that umbrella. Again, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. You can be in the chat room. We'll read some of those messages. I see some hellos and, how are you? And so thanks for everyone who did watch the broadcast tonight. If you didn't watch us live and you're hearing this now in podcast form, that's right. We'll be released Wednesday mornings, every Wednesday. The Tuesday night show will come out in audio form. So if you don't catch us live, you can catch us taped. And so either way, we appreciate you listening.
We also both look better on tape.
Yeah, so we do have faces for radio, as they say. So if you don't want to see 2 ugly mugs, you can just listen to us. We're not going to take it personal. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for listening, whether you listen live or listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you in a week, and we'll talk some more sports next Tuesday. Take care. Have a good night. Be safe. Be healthy. We'll see you next time.